unexpected arrival. The vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beneath Queen Silara's malfunctioning spacecraft. Swerving clouds parted occasionally, offering glimpses of the blue-green world below. Silara's four-fingered hands danced across holographic controls, desperately trying to stabilize her rapidly descending vessel. Warning klaxons blared through the ship's interior. Hull integrity compromised, the ship's AI announced in a maddeningly calm voice. Impact with planetary surface imminent. Silara gritted her teeth, her iridescent scales shimmering with stress-induced color changes. As supreme leader of the Galactic Confederation, she had faced numerous crises, but none quite like this. A routine diplomatic mission had turned into a nightmare when her ship was ambushed by unknown assailants, forcing her to flee through an uncharted section of space. "Computer, scan for suitable landing zones," Silara commanded, her melodic voice strained. "Scanning. Suitable landing zone detected. Uninhabited island, coordinates 15 degs, 171 dega." A small speck appeared on the ship's viewscreen, growing larger by the second. Silara braced herself as the ship plummeted towards the island, its sleek silver hull glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. With a deafening roar and a violent impact that rattled Silara to her core, the ship plowed into a pristine beach, carving a deep furrow in the sand before coming to rest at the edge of a dense jungle. For several long moments, Silara remained motionless, her heart racing. Slowly, she unstrapped herself from the pilot's seat and stood on shaky legs. A quick self-assessment revealed no serious injuries, thanks to the ship's advanced safety systems. "Computer, status report," she said, coughing as acrid smoke filled the cabin. "Life support systems failing. Hull breach detected. Emergency beacon active, but signal strength compromised due to damage." Silara's spirits sank. Rescue could be days or even weeks away, assuming the beacon's signal could penetrate the planet's atmosphere. She needed to evacuate the ship and find shelter. Grabbing an emergency survival pack, Silara made her way to the airlock. She hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the release mechanism. This planet, Earth, if she remembered correctly from her briefings, was classified as a pre-contact world. Strict Confederation laws prohibited interference with developing civilizations. But those laws seemed far less important now that her life was on the line. Taking a deep breath, Silara cycled the airlock and stepped out onto alien soil. The humid air hit her like a physical force, immediately causing her skin to glisten with moisture. Her large, multifaceted eyes took in the tropical landscape, white sand beach, crystal-clear waters, and a verdant jungle stretching inland. Silara's antenna twitched, sensing the planet's magnetic field and analyzing the air's composition. To her relief, the atmosphere was breathable, albeit with a higher oxygen content than she was accustomed to. It left her feeling slightly lightheaded. As she contemplated her next move, a sound from the jungle's edge caught her attention. Silara whirled around, her hand instinctively reaching for the small defensive weapon at her hip. A figure emerged from the dense foliage, and Silara found herself face to face with one of the planet's native inhabitants. The human was male, tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and a scraggy beard. He wore tattered clothing that had clearly seen better days, and in his hands he clutched a crude spear fashioned from a sharpened piece of wood. For a long moment, neither moved. Silara's mind raced. This was exactly the scenario she had been trained to avoid. Direct contact with a pre-spaceflight civilization could have dire consequences, altering the natural course of their development. But in her current predicament, she realized she might not have a choice. The human was the first to break the silence. He spoke, his words unintelligible to Silara, but his tone cautious and questioning. He gestured towards her ship, then back to her. Silara slowly raised her hands, palms out, in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I mean you no harm," she said, knowing he wouldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. The human tilted his head, considering, then to Sayala's surprise, he mimicked her gesture, lowering his spear. He spoke again, this time pointing to himself and uttering a single word repeatedly. "Jack," he said, thumping his chest. "Jack." Sayala realized he was telling her his name. She pointed to herself and replied, "Sayala." A smile broke across Jack's face, transforming his features from wary to almost boyishly excited. He gestured for her to follow him, pointing towards the jungle. Sayala hesitated. Following this human went against every protocol she had been taught. But as she glanced back at her ruined ship, she knew her options were limited. With a silent apology to her advisors back home, she nodded and fell into step behind Jack. As they trekked through the dense foliage, Sayala's mind whirled with questions. How had this human ended up alone on this island? How long had he been here? And most pressingly, how would his presence complicate her mission to remain undetected while she waited for rescue? After about 20 minutes of walking, they emerged into a small clearing. Sayala's eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. A crude but ingenious shelter stood in the center, constructed from salvaged pieces of what appeared to be a small boat or plane. Various handmade tools and weapons were scattered about, and a small garden of native plants grew in neat rows to one side. Jack gestured proudly to his camp, then pointed to a small stream that ran along the edge of the clearing. He mimed drinking, inviting Sayala to refresh herself. As Sayala cautiously approached the stream, marveling at the human's survival skills, a distant rumble caught her attention. She looked up, her extra-sensitive hearing picking up a sound that Jack had yet to notice. It was a sound she recognized all too well, spacecraft entering the atmosphere. Panic gripped her as she realized the implications. Those ships weren't Confederation vessels coming to her rescue. No, these had to be the same hostiles that had shot her down, and they were coming to finish the job. Sayala turned to Jack, who was now looking at her with concern, having finally heard the approaching ships. In that moment, Sayala made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives and potentially the fate of two civilizations. She grabbed Jack's hand, pointing urgently towards the sky and then to his shelter. Somehow, the human understood. His eyes hardened with determination, and he nodded quickly, beginning to gather his most important tools and weapons. As the roar of the approaching ships grew louder, Sayala helped Jack disguise the entrance to his shelter. They worked in frantic silence, using vegetation and debris to camouflage the structure. Just as they finished, the first ship appeared overhead, its sleek, predatory form a stark contrast to Sayala's diplomatic vessel. Jack pulled Sayala into the shelter, and they huddled together in the dark, cramped space. Sayala could feel the human's rapid heartbeat and smell the fear-induced sweat on his skin. Yet despite his terror, he positioned himself protectively in front of her, his crude spear held ready. The sound of the ships was deafening now. Sayala could hear the whine of anti-gravity engines as they hovered over the beach where her ship had crashed. There was a series of loud explosions, and she knew with a sinking feeling that the hostiles were destroying the evidence of her landing. For hours, they remained hidden as the ships methodically searched the island. Sayala marveled at Jack's ingenuity. His shelter, while simple, was remarkably effective at masking their heat signatures and scent. As night fell, the ships finally departed, leaving behind an eerie silence. When they finally emerged from hiding, Sayala saw the destruction left in the wake of the search. Large swaths of the jungle had been burned or flattened. Her ship was nothing more than a smoking crater on the beach. Jack placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, and when she turned to look at him, she saw not pity in his eyes, but a fierce determination. He pointed to himself, then to her, and made a gesture that unmistakably meant together. In that moment, Sayala realized that her mission had irrevocably changed. She was no longer just an observer of humanity. She had become an active participant in their story. And this human, this remarkable, resourceful being, was now her ally in a conflict that threatened not just her, but potentially his entire world. As they stood together on the beach, Watching the last traces of the hostile ships disappear into the night sky, Sylara knew that the real challenge was just beginning. She had to find a way to contact her people, warn them of this new threat, and do it all while protecting Jack and the secret of humanity's first contact with alien life. The diplomat in her recoiled at the monumental breach of protocol. The survivor in her was simply grateful for Jack's help, and a small, unexpected part of her was exhilarated by the prospect of working alongside this fascinating example of humanity. Whatever came next, Sylara knew one thing for certain: her view of humanity and her role in the galaxy would never be the same again. As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Sylara and Jack shared a look of determination. Their unlikely partnership had only just begun, and the fate of two worlds now rested in their hands. Quantum bonds and cosmic secrets. As the tropical sun climbed higher in the sky, Queen Sylara and Jack stood at the edge of the jungle, surveying the devastation left by the hostile ships. The once pristine beach was now scarred with deep furrows and smoking craters. Sylara's multifaceted eyes scanned the horizon, her iridescent scales shimmering with a mix of worry and determination. "Quantum signature," Sylara said, pointing to the fading trails in the sky left by the enemy ships. She tapped her temple, trying to convey the concept to Jack. Jack's brow furrowed in concentration. He mimicked her gesture, then pointed to his own head. "Think big," he ventured, struggling to bridge the language gap. Sylara nodded encouragingly. She knelt in the sand, using a stick to draw a series of interconnected circles and lines. As she sketched, she explained in her melodic language, "The Void Reavers, the bad ones. They use quantum entanglement for faster-than-light travel. It's how they found me so quickly." Jack studied the diagram intently. Though he couldn't understand her words, his eyes lit up with a spark of comprehension. He pointed to the drawing, then to the sky, making a whooshing motion with his hand. "Yes, exactly," Sylara explained, her antenna twitching with excitement. "They move through space-time folds." Their impromptu science lesson was interrupted by a low rumble from the jungle. Both Sylara and Jack tensed, ready for another threat. Instead, a small, furry creature emerged from the underbrush. It resembled a cross between a lemur and a squirrel, with large, luminous eyes and a bushy tail that glowed faintly in the shadows. "Whisperling," Jack said softly, a fun smile crossing his face. He made a gentle chittering sound, and the creature approached cautiously. Sylara watched in fascination as the whisperling sniffed Jack's outstretched hand before climbing up his arm to perch on his shoulder. Its tail pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent light. "Bioluminescent quantum entanglement," Sylara murmured, her scientific curiosity piqued. She reached out slowly, allowing the whisperling to investigate her alien scent. To her surprise, the creature's tail brightened as it touched her scales, creating a shimmer of colors that danced across her skin. Jack's eyes widened in wonder. He pointed to the whisperling, then to Sylara's glowing scales, making a connection gesture with his hands. Sylara nodded excitedly. Yes, the whisperling's bioluminescence is reacting to my quantum-sensitive scales. This could be the key to boosting our distress signal." Though Jack couldn't understand her words, he sensed the importance of the discovery. He grinned, giving her a thumbs up, a human gesture she was quickly coming to appreciate. Over the next few days, Sylara and Jack fell into a routine, working together to salvage what they could from her crashed ship and strengthen their defenses against potential return of the Void Reavers. Communication remained a challenge, but they developed a rudimentary sign language, supplemented by drawings in the sand and increasingly accurate guesswork. One evening, as they sat by a small fire outside Jack's shelter, Sylara decided it was time to share more about her mission and the larger galactic community. Using a combination of gestures, drawings, and the few English words she had picked up, she began to explain. "I am Queen," she said, pointing to herself and miming a crown. "Of many worlds." She swept her arm across the star-filled sky. Jack's eyes widened. Queen, space, he asked, his voice filled with awe. Solara nodded. Galactic Confederation, she said slowly, enunciating each syllable. She drew a large circle in the sand, then smaller circles within it. Many species, many planets, working together. Jack listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration as he tried to grasp the enormity of what she was telling him. Earth, part of Space Group, he asked hesitantly. Solara shook her head. Not yet. Earth, young, not ready. She paused, considering her next words carefully. But maybe soon. As Jack processed this information, Solara continued her explanation. She told him about the Void Reavers, a separatist faction that rejected the Confederation's principles of peaceful coexistence and scientific advancement. They sought to conquer and exploit less developed worlds, seeing species like humans as little more than resources to be used. Bad. Want Earth? Jack asked, his expression darkening with concern. Solara nodded gravely. Yes. Must protect. Must warn my people. Jack stood up, pacing around the fire as he grappled with the implications of what he'd learned. Solara watched him, marveling at how quickly this primitive human was adapting to the idea of a vast, complex galactic civilization. Suddenly, Jack stopped and turned to her, his eyes blazing with determination. "Teach me," he said firmly. "Teach me everything." Lara felt a surge of admiration for this resilient human. Despite having his world turned upside down, he was eager to learn, to understand, to help. She stood and placed a hand on his shoulder, her scales glowing softly in the firelight. "Yes," she said, "we learned together." Over the next weeks, their shelter became a classroom unlike any other in Earth's history. Using salvaged technology from her ship and materials gathered from the island, Solara began teaching Jack the basics of advanced physics, xenobiology, and galactic politics. For his part, Jack proved to be an exceptionally quick study. His years of isolation on the island had honed his problem-solving skills and adaptability to a razor's edge. He absorbed Solara's lessons with remarkable speed, often making intuitive leaps that surprised even her. As they worked, they also continued to study the Whisperlings. Solara's theory about their quantum-entangled bioluminescence proved correct. With Jack's help, she constructed a crude but functional quantum amplifier, using the creature's unique biology to boost the power of her distress beacon. One night, as they made final adjustments to the amplifier, Jack turned to Solara with a serious expression. "When your people come," he said, his English now much improved thanks to their lessons, "what happens to Earth? To me?" Solara's heart clenched. It was a question she had been avoiding, knowing the usual protocols for first contact situations. But as she looked at Jack, this remarkable human who had become not just her ally, but her friend, she knew she couldn't simply abandon him or his world to face the Void Reaver threat alone. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I promise you this, Jack. I will do everything in my power to protect Earth and to ensure that you and your people have a voice in what comes next." Jack nodded, a small smile crossing his face. "Together," he asked, extending his hand in the human gesture of partnership that he had taught her. Solara took his hand, her scales glowing with warmth. "Together," she agreed. As they activated the quantum amplifier, sending a supercharged distress signal into the depths of space, neither of them could have imagined the chain of events they were setting in motion. The signal would not only reach the Galactic Confederation, but would also attract the attention of forces both benevolent and malevolent across the cosmos. Earth's isolation was coming to an end, and at the heart of this monumental shift in human history stood an unlikely pair, a castaway and an alien queen, united by circumstance and bound by a growing friendship that transcended the barriers of species and culture. As the amplified signal pulsed outward, carrying with it the hopes and fears of two worlds, Solara and Jack stood side by side, watching the star-filled sky. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their quantum bond a beacon of hope in the vast, often dangerous expanse of the galaxy. Cosmic convergence and terrestrial ingenuity. The quantum amplifier hummed with otherworldly energy, its cobbled-together components pulsing with an eerie blue light. Scylla and Jack stood before their creation, a testament to the fusion of alien technology and human resourcefulness. The Whisperlings, now an integral part of their makeshift communication array, chirped and flitted about, their bioluminescent tails leaving trails of quantum-entangled particles in the air. Xenoharmonic resonance at 87%, Solara announced, her iridescent scales flickering with excitement. Jack, we're piercing the galactic noise floor. Jack nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration as he adjusted a crystal matrix salvaged from Solara's crashed ship. Boosting the tachyon flux, he replied, his grasp of advanced physics now rivaling that of Earth's top scientists. If we can sustain this for another 12 hours, the signal should reach the nearest Confederation outpost. As they worked, neither noticed the strange phenomena beginning to manifest around their island's sanctuary. The boundaries between dimensions began to blur, creating shimmering mirages on the horizon. Exotic particles rained down from the upper atmosphere, causing the local flora to mutate and evolve at an accelerated rate. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the ground, nearly toppling their equipment. Jack steadied Axelara as she stumbled, their eyes meeting with shared concern. Tectonic disruption, Jack ventured, but Axelara shook her head. No, this is something else, something impossible. Her antenna twitched, sensing disturbances in the fabric of space-time itself. Jack, I think we've done more than send a signal. We've created a nexus point. Before Jack could ask for clarification, the sky above them split open, revealing a swirling vortex of cosmic energy. Through this interdimensional rift, they glimpsed otherworldly landscapes and celestial bodies that defied human comprehension. By the first founders, Solara breathed, her royal composure momentarily shaken. We've triggered a cosmic convergence. As if in response to her words, the rift pulsed, and three distinct entities emerged. First, a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and pulsing with prismatic colors. It radiated an aura of ancient wisdom and unfathomable power. Second, a mechanical construct of impossible complexity, its surface covered in ever-changing fractal patterns. It moved with a grace that belied its metallic nature. Finally, a creature that seemed to be a living galaxy, with swirling arms of stardust and eyes like newborn suns. Its very presence warped the space around it. Jack instinctively moved to protect Xylara, but she gently restrained him. Wait, she whispered. I know these beings. They are the cosmic arbiters, neutral observers of galactic affairs. Their presence here, it changes everything. The energy being spoke first, its voice resonating directly in their minds. Queen Solara of the Galactic Confederation, your distress call has been heard, but in your desperation, you and your human ally have stumbled upon something far greater. The mechanical entity chimed in, its voice a harmonious blend of tones. You have created a bridge between realms, a convergence point of unparalleled potential. The repercussions of this discovery would echo across the cosmos for eons to come. The galaxy being's voice was like the whisper of solar winds, but with great power comes great danger. The Void Reavers sense this nexus, and they are not alone. Forces beyond your imagining now turn their gaze upon this world. Solara stepped forward, her regal bearing on full display despite the extraordinary circumstances. Honored arbiters, I take full responsibility for this situation. I ask for your guidance in protecting Earth and its people from the coming storm. The arbiters conferred silently for a moment before the energy being addressed them again. The scales of cosmic balance have shifted. Earth can no longer remain isolated. Its fate is now inexorably linked with that of the greater galactic community. The energy being raised its luminous appendages. We shall grant you the knowledge and tools needed to defend your world against the coming threats. But be warned, how you use this power will determine not only Earth's fate, but potentially that of the entire galaxy. The mechanical entity produced a small, cube-like device that floated towards Jack and Zylara. This is the Nexus Cipher. It contains the collective scientific knowledge of 1,000 advanced civilizations. Use it wisely. As Jack took hold of the cube, he felt a surge of information flood his mind. Equations, theories, and technological blueprints beyond humanity's wildest dreams danced before his eyes. The arbiters spoke in unison, their voices merging into a cosmic harmony. The convergence has begun. Earth's greatest trial, and its greatest opportunity, lies ahead. May your wisdom guide you through the challenges to come. With those parting words, the cosmic arbiters retreated through the dimensional rift, which sealed itself with a thunderous clap. Zylara and Jack stood in stunned silence for a moment, the Nexus Cipher glowing softly between them. The Whisperlings, seemingly unfazed by the cosmic spectacle, resumed their playful dance around the quantum amplifier. "Well," Jack said finally, a hint of his old humor returning, "I guess we've got our work cut out for us." Zylara nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Indeed, we need to prepare Earth for what's coming, and quickly." As they began to plan their next moves, neither of them noticed a small shadowy figure watching from the edge of the jungle. The observer's eyes glowed with an unnatural red light as it transmitted a message to its masters. Nexus located, Earth status uplifted, invasion plans must accelerate. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of the entire galaxy. And at the center of it all stood an unlikely pair, an alien queen and a human castaway, armed with cosmic knowledge and bound by a friendship that transcended the stars. Quantum insurgency and the Terran awakening. The Nexus Cipher pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its fractal surface shifting and reconfiguring as Jack and Zylara pored over its contents. The beach around them had transformed into a makeshift laboratory, a bizarre fusion of salvaged alien tech and crude human ingenuity. "Hyperquantum entanglement," Jack muttered, his eyes glazed over as he absorbed impossible amounts of information. "We could use this to create a planetary defense grid." Zylara nodded, her iridescent scales flickering with excitement. "And look here, psychokinetic amplification through dark matter manipulation. Your species' latent psionic potential could be our secret weapon." Their brainstorming session was interrupted by a familiar chirping. A Whisperling perched on the Nexus Cipher, its bioluminescent tail pulsing in an odd rhythm. Suddenly, the creature's eyes glowed with an intense blue light, and a holographic display burst forth, filling the air around them. "By the cosmic core," Zylara gasped. The Whisperlings, their organic quantum computers. Jack's eyes widened in awe. They must have evolved in response to the dimensional rift. Earth's biosphere is adapting to the cosmic convergence. The holographic display showed a real-time map of the planet, with pulsing red dots appearing at strategic locations. "Void Reaver Advanced Scouts," Zylara explained grimly. "They're establishing transdimensional beachheads for the main invasion force." Jack's jaw set with determination. "Then we need to wake up the planet. It's time for Operation Terran Awakening." Over the next few days, Jack and Zylara worked tirelessly, using the Nexus Cipher to construct a device unlike anything Earth had ever seen. They called it the Gaia Resonator, a quantum broadcaster that could tap into the planet's ley lines and awaken humanity's dormant potential. As the final piece clicked into place, Jack turned to Zylara, his eyes burning with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Are you sure about this? Once we activate it, there's no going back. Earth will never be the same." Zylara placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her scales shimmering with empathy. "Your world is already changing, Jack. This way, at least humanity has a fighting chance." With a deep breath, Jack nodded and flipped the switch. The effect was instantaneous and planet-wide. The Gaia Resonator sent out a pulse of quantum energy that rippled through the Earth's core and out into the noosphere, the collective consciousness of humanity. Across the globe, people stopped in their tracks, their eyes glowing with an inner light as ancestral memories and cosmic knowledge flooded their minds. In an instant, billions of humans became aware of their true potential and the looming alien threat. In New York, a hot dog vendor levitated his cart with newfound telekinetic abilities, using it to shield civilians from a Void Reaver scout ship's energy blast. In Tokyo, a young programmer's fingers flew across her keyboard at superhuman speeds, instinctively hacking into and disabling a network of alien sabotage devices. On the Siberian tundra, a grizzled hermit communed with the local wildlife, orchestrating a coordinated attack against a Void Reaver landing party. The Terran awakening had begun. Back on their island, Jack and Zilara watched the holographic display in awe as humanity rose to the challenge, but their elation was short-lived. A massive tremor shook the ground, and the sky above them turned an ominous shade of crimson. A voice like grinding tectonic plates echoed across the island. Insignificant creatures, your petty resistance is futile. The Void hungers, and your world shall feed it. Jack and Zilara shed a look of grim determination. The true battle for Earth was about to begin. We need to coordinate the global defense, Zilara said, her royal training kicking in. If we can hold off the main invasion force long enough, the Galactic Confederation might arrive in time to turn the tide. Jack nodded, already interfacing with the Gaia Resonator to send out tactical information to the newly awakened human defenders worldwide. I'm patching us into the global quantum neural network now. We'll lead this fight from the front lines. As they prepare for the coming onslaught, a shimmering portal opened nearby. Out stepped a figure that made both of them freeze in shock. It was another Jack, older, battle-scarred, and radiating an aura of cosmic power. There's no time to explain, the future Jack said urgently. But know this, the key to victory lies not in the stars, but in the depths of Earth itself. Seek the Gaia Protocol. Before they could respond, future Jack vanished in a flash of quantum energy, leaving our heroes with more questions than answers. Zilara turned to her Jack, a wry smile on her face despite the dire circumstances. I don't suppose the Nexus cipher has any information on temporal paradoxes and bootstrap loops. Jack chuckled, the familiar banter helping to ease the tension. I'll add it to our to-do list, right after Save the World and rewrite the laws of physics. As if on cue, the first wave of Void Reaver warships burst through the crimson sky, their eldritch weaponry already charging. Jack and Zilara stood side by side, the Nexus cipher and Gaia Resonator humming with power before them. Earth's fate hung in the balance, with an alien queen and a former castaway serving as the unlikely linchpins of humanity's defense. The Whisperlings gathered around them, their bioluminescent tails pulsing in unison as if in defiance of the cosmic horror descending upon them. Jack turned to Zilara, a glint of his old humor in his eyes despite the gravity of the situation. Still glad you crashed on my island. Zilara's scales shimmered with affection and fierce determination. There's no place in the galaxy I'd rather be. As the Void Reaver weapons reached full charge, Jack and Zilara raised their hands in unison, channeling the combined power of alien technology, Earth's awakened biosphere, and humanity's newfound potential. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy rested on what would happen next. The quantum insurgency had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Gaia's gambit and the cosmic resurrection. The sky burned crimson as Void Reaver warships descended upon Earth, their eldritch weaponry casting shadows of doom across the planet. But humanity, newly awakened and united through the quantum neural network, stood defiant. Jack and Zilara, perched atop that island sanctuary, orchestrated a defense unlike anything the cosmos had ever witnessed. The Gaia Resonator pulsed with otherworldly energy, linking every human mind into a singular, indomitable force. Psychic shockwave deployed in Sector 7. Jack called out, his consciousness simultaneously present across a dozen global battlefronts. Solara, we need more power to the Australian psionic barrier. Solara's sails shimmered with exertion as she interfaced directly with the planet's ley lines. Diverting geothermal energy now. Jack, the Void Reavers are adapting. We need a new strategy. As if in answer to her plea, the ground beneath them trembled. Cracks appeared in the earth, but instead of magma, brilliant blue light poured forth. The Whisperlings, ever attuned to the island's quantum fluctuations, began an intricate aerial dance, their bioluminescent trails forming complex, multidimensional patterns in the air. Jack's eyes widened in realization. The Gaia Protocol. That's what future me meant. Earth itself is awakening. Before their astonished eyes, colossal crystalline structures erupted from the ground worldwide. These Gaia spires pulsed with pure planetary energy, forming a lattice of power that encased the entire globe. A voice, ancient and powerful, resonated through every particle of the planet. See it Ildoren of Earth and STRs, IAMGAIA. The time of Slumbr is over. Let USSHOU, these co-SMACUSURPRS, the true power of life, ATS11. The Gaia spires flared to life, unleashing beams of concentrated planetary energy that carved through Void Reaver ships like cosmic scalpels. But the invaders, relentless in their hunger, pressed on. In New York, the Statue of Liberty, animated by collective human will, swatted alien fighters from the sky. The pyramids of Giza transformed into quantum cannons, their ancient stones channeling energy from dimensions beyond human comprehension. Yet for every Void Reaver ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The tide of battle teetered on a knife's edge. We need more. Solara shouted over the din of battle. The Gaia Protocol is strong, but it's not enough. Jack's mind raced, processing terabytes of data from the Nexus cipher and the global quantum network. Suddenly, a wild, impossible idea struck him. Solara, he said, his voice filled with equal parts fear and excitement. What if we could weaponize evolution itself? Her multifaceted eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. The Whisperling's quantum properties, combined with Earth's awakened biosphere and the Nexus cipher's knowledge. We could trigger a planet-wide evolutionary leap, Jack finished. Not just for humans, but for every living thing on Earth. It's insane, Solara breathed. It breaks every law of physics and biology I know. Jack grinned, the old spark of the castaway survivor gleaming in his eyes. Good thing we're rewriting those laws, then. They worked feverishly, integrating the Whisperlings into the Gaia resonator, channeling the power of the Gaia spires, and using the Nexus cipher to calculate the most beneficial evolutionary paths for Earth's biosphere. As the final preparations were made, Jack turned to Solara. Once we do this, there's no going back. Earth, humanity, everything changes forever. Solara took his hand, her scales shimmering with a complex mix of emotions. Your world was always destined for greatness, Jack. We're just accelerating the timeline a bit. With a shared nod, they activated the device. A wave of scintillating energy erupted from their island, washing over the planet in a matter of seconds. Every living thing on Earth froze for a moment, then began to change. Plants developed sentience and uprooted themselves to join the fight. Animals evolved at an accelerated rate, gaining heightened intelligence and, in some cases, energy manipulation abilities. Humans underwent the most dramatic transformation of all, their latent psionic abilities exploding into full bloom. The Void Reavers, faced with an entire planet of rapidly evolving life forms, found their advantage slipping away. Earth's defenders, now armed with abilities beyond their wildest dreams, began to turn the tide. In orbit, Jack and Solara watched in awe as a new form of space whale, birthed from Earth's oceans and evolved to survive in vacuum, breached the atmosphere to engage Void Reaver capital ships directly. But the invaders had one last, desperate gambit. The Void Reaver flagship, a construct of impossible geometries and cosmic horror, began to power up a weapon capable of unraveling reality itself. "If that thing fires, it's over," Scylla said grimly. "Not just for Earth, but for this entire sector of the galaxy." Jack's eyes blazed with determination. "Then we'll just have to fire first." In perfect synchronization, they interfaced with the Gaia resonator, channeling the combined evolutionary power of Earth's entire biosphere. Every Gaia spire on the planet aligned, focusing their energy on a single point. Jack and Zylara, their minds merged through the quantum network, spoke as one. "For Earth, for life itself, let there be light." A beam of pure creation, carrying within it the condensed evolutionary potential of an entire world, lanced out from Earth. It struck the Void Reaver flagship dead center, and for a moment, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a reality-shaking explosion, the flagship detonated. But instead of destruction, it released a wave of creative energy. The remaining Void Reavers were caught in the blast, not destroyed, but transformed. Their ships of eldritch horror blossomed into cosmic gardens, teeming with new, benevolent life forms. As the light faded and the dust settled, Earth emerged victorious. But it was a changed world that greeted the dawn. Humanity, along with every other species on the planet, had taken its first steps into a new era of cosmic evolution. Amid the celebration and wonder, Jack turned to Scylla, his eyes filled with tears of joy and overwhelming emotion. "We did it," he said simply. Scylla nodded, her scales shimmering with pride and affection. "No, Jack, you did it. Humanity did it. I was just honored to witness it." As they embraced, the first ships of the Galactic Confederation appeared in orbit, fashionably late to the party. Earth's isolation was officially over, and its entry onto the galactic stage couldn't have been more dramatic. Jack laughed, shaking his head at the absurdity and wonder of it all. "So, Your Majesty," he said with a playful bow to Scylla, "ready to help me explain to the UN how Earth just became a quantum-evolved, psychically linked, galaxy-shaping superpower overnight." Scylla's musical laughter joined his. "After what we've just been through, that should be a piece of cake." As they prepared to address a forever changed humanity and welcome Earth into the galactic community, neither Jack nor Scylla could have imagined the adventures that still lay ahead. For this was not an ending, but a beginning, the dawn of a new cosmic age, with humanity and their unlikely alien ally at its very heart. The universe, it seemed, would never be the same again, and that was just the way they liked it.